Hokie Hangover Podcast. We are recording here live at 10:22 on a Monday night. Thank you to those folks who are joining the live show and those are going to play back. Um, Hold on, got some feedback there. Appreciate everyone joining again. Big shout out to our sponsors and our supporters, Home Field Apparel, Counts Family Pharmacy in Blacksburg. Really appreciate their continued support of the show. Mike is with me tonight. Michael, welcome.
We're basically just rotating co-host for you.
Yeah, Andrew's taking the night off. He had an exhausting weekend. He is certainly enjoying some time to himself. So Andrew will be back. We'll have a preview, obviously, of NC State later in the week. But tonight you are stuck with just Michael and myself. Michael missed the preview of this game. So, Mike, we didn't even get your picks. So, do you have like a?
I
do we?
I didn't send them to you, did I?
Do you have picks from like that you gave to the basketball
I do.
conference podcast?
I do.
Okay.
I do in a text message as well. So it'll be proof that I'm not just doctoring my picks. Yes, I realize now I never sent them to you. So apologies.
So well, it's okay. Andrew had himself a hell of a week. He went 8-3 in the ACC this week. Syracuse, TCU, Florida State, Central Florida, or just Central, Duke, Georgia Tech, UVA, and Virginia Tech on the alternate spread. Won all of those, lost the Louisville, Florida, and Cal games. Cal got shut out, which is just bananas. I went 7-4. Izzy had not so great of a week at 2-9. Yeah, we didn't have a spread for this game when we picked it, Mike. So we had Virginia Tech -20 was the spread that we came up with at the time. Virginia Tech ended up being favored by like 34.5, I think, on Saturday is what the line ended up being.
I would have taken Tech -34.5. I gave we didn't have a spread when I gave the picks for my ACC pod either, and I just said, I think the text message said Tech in a dead cat bounce game. So
yeah,
that was my response.
Tech ended up winning by a lot, but they did not cover the 34.5. Virginia Tech wins this game 38-6. We're going to recap this game here briefly, and then we'll get into some other stuff, some big important news regarding Virginia Tech and the future of the program that was put out today to the public. But, Mike, full disclosure for the audience here, I watched some of this game live. I was at a bachelor party trip in Charlotte, so I was not watching mainly the second half. I watched just about the entire first half of this game. And my biggest takeaway from the beginning of this one was that Wofford is generationally awful, was the term that I used to describe. Yeah. Their offensive line is horrendous. Their defensive line is bad. They stink on defense in terms of pursuing the football. Just not a good football team. And they're like 0-4 now, I think. They're one of the worst FCS teams in the country, most likely. And it looked like it on the field on Saturday, where Virginia Tech essentially owned them in every phase of the game. Surprise, surprise.
It does take a lot to make this Virginia Tech team look competent, and that's what Wofford did. Now, I will say that I also did not watch this game live. I was on the way home from a family wedding on Saturday. I did rewatch it, though.
Yeah.
And if you watch that first half, you saw pretty much everything you needed to see, Ricky. I will say that Drones had the one fumble. I thought this was one of his better passing games he's had in maybe you could argue maybe it's the best passing game he's had, but I don't want to totally
27-32 for 307 and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, with like at least 3 drops, So yeah. I mean, he was as close to perfect in the passing game as you possibly can be. And I know you kind of adjusted for opponent a little bit, so I don't want to say definitively it was his best passing game as a Hokie. It was statistically, but like you mentioned, Wofford was really, really bad. Aiden Green obviously played well. I thought Virginia Tech did enough in the running game, obviously, but it was clear that they were really trying to focus on getting Drone some confidence in the passing game. That was my big takeaway, I think, overall from the offense is Philip Montgomery wanted to get Drones as confident as he could heading into ACC play, which I think is the right decision. That's why you schedule games like this to get your mind right and to get your players, to run your stuff and get your players feeling confident in the stuff you've been practicing. That's why you schedule these games. I thought Tech played a lot better. I really liked the effort relative to the last couple weeks. It was clear this team quit on Pry. Like we mentioned, they had not really quit on Pry until the second half of Vanderbilt. Even when they weren't playing well last year, it was not a quit thing. There was still effort. They just weren't playing well. It was clear in the second half of Vanderbilt and then obviously against Old Dominion that this team had mailed it in. I did not sense that at all on Saturday. Obviously, when you win a game by almost 5 touchdowns, you're not going to say the team was looking like it quit, but I just thought there was better effort from the jump on Saturday. It was almost like, okay, we're going to turn the page. This is kind of the start of our new season, right? We're going to go out there and try to rally the troops and play better football. So that was encouraging to see, right? That the players that at least are sticking around, it seems like, and I know there were a number of players who sat out for, as Montgomery put it after the game, there was some injury stuff, but there was also other stuff, I think is basically what he said.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we'll see who opts out. I mean, we know Dante Lovett's already hit the portal. That's okay. The guys are going to enter the portal. That's their prerogative. They came to play for a certain coach. That coach is no longer here. I get it. Like, it's all good, right? No hard feelings. I get it. But for the guys who are remaining, it's clear that they want to go out there and put their best foot forward. So that was really encouraging to watch.
Yeah, and Kamari Copeland had a quote after the game that I thought was intriguing, where he essentially said, they had a meeting after Brent Pry was fired with the team, and they essentially opened the door and said, leave if you don't want to be here. Like, you can walk out right now. And I think that's really important in a situation like this where you've got all these different competing interests, right? You have Philip Montgomery, who's trying to potentially earn a job elsewhere next year. All these assistant coaches are in the same boat. You've got players trying to earn spots on rosters, whether it be at Virginia Tech next season or elsewhere. So everyone's trying to kind of fend for themselves at this point. And it's nice that someone in a leadership role in this team, as Kamari Copeland is, to kind of, put everyone's foot to the fire and say, look, if you're going to stick around, you're going to have to play as a team. And if you don't want to do that, then don't let the door hit you on the way out. And I kind of like that approach. I think it's important for the players to kind of hold themselves accountable. Um, there have been some coaches that have talked about, good teams have systems where the players hold each other accountable as opposed to the coaches having to do it. And Virginia Tech is obviously not a good team. We've learned that through the first few weeks of the season. But if this team is going to do anything in the ACC, I mean, even if they're going to win 2 or 3 conference games, which at this point seems like the team's ceiling, then they're going to have to get tough. They're going to have to come together. And hopefully this is what Saturday was. And that was kind of my broader takeaway from this game was this is where was Virginia Tech trying to pick up the pieces and trying to find a way to salvage something that's left of this, right? This has obviously been a disaster of a start for the year. Nobody wanted this. What do you do now, right? We have so many games left on the schedule that it would be very easy for Virginia Tech to continue to mail it in week after week, look like an absolute abject embarrassment on the field. And don't get me wrong, there's still time for Tech to do that, right? They could go out and fall flat on their face for the remainder of the season, especially as the competition picks up. But Saturday was at least a small encouraging sign that this team was going to fight and not roll over. And they'll have plenty of opportunities to roll over if they want to, but hopefully that's not going to be the case. And I think Saturday may be some evidence that that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to pick up even a few conference wins, I mean, this is the point in the schedule where you're going to be able to do it conceivably, right? I mean, there's an NC State team that plays little to no defense. There's, a Wake Forest team in a couple weeks that is not very good. There's a Georgia Tech game that's going to be pretty challenging going to Atlanta, but it may not be quite as tough as some of the games you have in the latter part of the schedule with the way Florida State and Miami have looked. So I think if you're going to pick up some wins, the near term is probably your best opportunity to do so. So it's good to get, things going in a better direction against lesser competition, because the prior week against lesser competition, you couldn't get the job done. In fact, you got embarrassed on your home field. So it was good to kind of step back in and get one under your belt, because this team has really struggled to do that. Like you mentioned, totally disastrous start to the year. And you can at least give the team some confidence heading into an NC State game that you're a touchdown underdog. They have a very good quarterback who did not play particularly well on Saturday in that loss to Duke, but he's a good quarterback, and they have a pretty good offense. But their defense is gettable, and you can be competitive in that game if you play well. So, I think you get some confidence going into your first league game, and you kind of see what you're made of, and we'll see what this team is made of. And like you said, I'm hoping they don't roll over. I do want this to be a semi-watchable product the rest of the year, despite how these first few weeks of the season have gone. I think there is an opportunity to go out and still play some good football. There are still some good players on this team. Obviously, they hadn't played up to their potential the first 3 weeks. That kind of goes without saying, but I think there's some opportunities here to, play some good football and, let the chips fall where they may. See if you can win a few and have us not be turning off the television like halfway through the second quarter like we had been doing, or I had been doing anyway.
Yeah, the closer these games can be, the better. Another thing that I thought was interesting from this game was how much Virginia Tech utilized the running backs in the passing game. That's not something that they've done a whole lot of this year, and even going back to last year. But Kyron completed 27 passes in this game. 13 of them went to running backs. PJ Prelo had 7 by himself. He was actually the leading. He was the leading receiver, both in terms of catches and yards. Tyler Mason had a catch. Jeremiah Coney had 3. Marcellus Hawkins had a couple. So I wonder if this is going to be something moving forward that we're going to be seeing more of, where Philip Montgomery is getting Kyron Jones to check down a lot more than he has been in the past. And we said at the beginning of the year, Mike, that running back was a potential strength of this offense, given the amount of experience and production that Virginia Tech brought in through the transfer portal. Marcellus Hawkins has a track record of success. Braden Bennett has a track record of success. Terrion Stewart didn't even get a snap in this game, I don't think. I wonder if they were potentially saving him because he's been dealing with some nagging injuries. So running back seems like a potential area where you can exploit your strengths against all sorts of offenses, and that can be done in all sorts of defenses, and that can be done in a variety of different ways because all of these running backs are a little different. So I don't know if that's going to be something to monitor moving forward, but if it allows Kyron to slow down, not force the ball into pressure so much, help protect himself against, but behind an offensive line that still did not play particularly well in this game, especially if you look at the Pro Football Focus grades. They were not very good. And maybe we just need to accept that this offensive line stinks and that it's not going to get much better. And if that's going to be the case, one way to take pressure off that group is to check it down quickly to those guys underneath. And that may be the best option at this point.
Yeah, it could be it. And I think we've seen this team try to force the issue in the downfield passing game. The first few games of the year obviously didn't work. the offense just looked a little bit different in terms of how things were operating. Yes, the team had obviously more success on offense. They were playing Wofford. Drones played better. Don't want to take anything away from him, but you're right. The offense and how it was run looked different on Saturday in terms of how they schemed things up. Maybe that's just a Wofford specific thing. Maybe it's not. I think we'll get some more clarity on that moving forward.
For sure. And then as far as the defense goes, I feel like this is hard to get a real read on just because Virginia Tech owned the line of scrimmage from start to finish, as you would expect. Kamari Copeland played extremely well. Um, Cody Heisman played extremely well. Really, the entire defensive line had a dominant performance, and thought Michael Short played well at linebacker. Certainly something to keep an eye on as Caleb Woodson did not dress out for this game. We don't know what his future is. So lots of questions still on this defense as far as I'm concerned, how they're going to be able to handle the secondary with Dante Lovett gone in a unit that's not played well really at all anyway. And then obviously at linebacker, which has been an abject mess.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have a hard time really giving big picture takeaways on defense other than the defense looked better, but I mean, of course it did.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
the specific performances, I think you're right on the money with the Michael Short piece. That was probably the only item I was going to bring up. Kamari Copeland had that nice interception. That was kind of cool. But the
Yeah, that was an athletic play for sure.
real, yeah, I mean, showed his ability. And Copeland's been good this year. You know, he's kind of been he's been one of the lone bright spots, I would say, on the defense. We've talked about him actually a good bit as far as like how positive things have been. We're like, oh, okay, like Copeland's getting more run. He's playing a lot better. Like, seems like things are really trending up for him, and that continued on Saturday. So that was really cool. But the one takeaway for me was the Michael Short piece because we don't know what Woodson's future is. We don't know if this was, oh, I'm sitting out because I'm considering opting out, or if this was maybe disciplinary from the arrest before the year and he's got a court date coming up. Maybe maybe Philip Montgomery's like, hey, buddy, you still haven't sat. Maybe this is where you sit, you know?
Yep.
So that could have been it too. I'm not sure. I don't want to speculate because I don't know, but that is certainly something to monitor, especially if Michael Short ends up getting an uptick in snaps one way or another.
Yeah, we'll have to figure that out. And Caleb Spencer got some serious run in this game as well. Not sure if that's going to be something that we see moving forward. I know that was a surprising point for me earlier in the year that we weren't really seeing Caleb on the field all that much. He got a lot of snaps against Wofford, but who knows if that's going to be something that happens moving forward. Virginia Tech does get its first win of the season, which is obviously nice. I don't know how many more of those we're going to get, Michael. We'll have to wait and see. Certainly,
If I set the over under at 2.5, how we feeling? Can we get two more? Wake and
yes.
UVA. UVA's
Well,
good.
look,
UVA's pretty good, but until we see it,
I'm not banking on a UVA win at the end of the season. Cal is an interesting team. I don't really know what to expect from that game. I could see Virginia Tech showing up to play on a Friday night in Blacksburg. The UVA game, who the hell knows? Wake's bad.
Wake's bad. Yeah,
They're
there's some
not good.
winnable. There's some games that they could win. You
Yeah,
know,
I I I would I would venture to say that 3-9 is probably like your middle of the road prediction with the
yeah,
potential to maybe go 4-8 or 5-7.
yeah.
I think we have kissed a bowl game goodbye.
I
I don't think that that's happening.
yeah, I don't think
So
so.
everything would need to go about as well as it could possibly go for this team to win 5 games, which
Yeah,
means we're probably looking at 3-4, uh, which checks out based on what the schedule looks like at this point. But the hope is that Virginia Tech won't be in this position for much longer. And we've obviously talked about this Board of Visitors presentation that's been worked on by John Rokovich, Jay Pearson, and Ryan McCarthy, as well as with Babcock, to try and figure out a way that the university can substantially support and invest in athletics to try and fill some of this gap that Virginia Tech has against some of the elite schools in the conference. And Mike, I've been beating the drum for a while now. I don't think this is a resource problem per se,
Mhm.
based on what my expectations are for the program. However, if the expectation is going to be that Virginia Tech is going to consistently compete for conference titles, then yes, there is a resource issue, and that's not really up for dispute. So this presentation has been put together now for a while. It's available on Virginia Tech's website. I tweeted it out. From my account, you can view the entire presentation on your own. Essentially, Virginia Tech is committing to get the athletics department in the upper echelon of the ACC starting this year, basically.
Quickly. Yeah.
So for FY26, the plan is to get Virginia Tech almost $40 million of additional funding, which would put them at $190 million. And then by FY27, it would be 204, FY28, 207, and then FY29, 212 million, which would put them easily in the upper echelon of really the country. But obviously, that's based on those other schools not increasing their numbers. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
hard to get an idea as to where Virginia Tech will be 3 years from now. But the plan right now is to get Virginia Tech in really that upper group, especially in this conference, immediately. Now, there's a few things with this presentation I want to talk about, Mike. One of which is where this money's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
This is a bit that I think I admittedly overlooked when I first saw the presentation come out, um, because I didn't really expect these kinds of splits, but I do want to bring these up. So the total investment that they're planning on adding is $229 million. 120 million of that is projected to be from fundraising, which is more than half.
Mm-hmm.
So the Board of Visitors plan is to invest 229 million, half of which they're going to have to get from you, people like myself, people like Andrew, people like our listeners, and they're going to be essentially trying to get that money from folks that they haven't been getting that money from already. So the biggest question here, basically from all of this, is how is Virginia Tech going to be able to sell this to the fan base, to be able to come up with the funds necessary to fulfill these projections?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Couple quick things, just high level before I dive into the where's it coming from piece. The first thing when I looked at this is like, this is great. I'm glad that we're going to treat this like the operation that everybody wants it to be. I've been in lockstep with you that this is not a resource issue if you have realistic expectations for this program in today's college football world. If you want this to be the program that it was 20, 25 years ago, even shorter, like 15 years ago, then yes, you need to invest like this. This is what you need to do. It's college football is different now. You need to spend to win. What Dan Lanning say? You spend to win, and then other schools don't spend. So when they lose, they have an excuse as to why they lose, which is right on the money.
Yep.
The most important two things from this presentation, in my opinion, are how quickly Virginia Tech plans on upping the financial standing of the athletic department, how quickly they're planning on doing this. FY26 is already underway, by the way. So
Yep.
This is like immediate almost, right? And the reason why it's immediate is because you just opened your head football coaching job. That's why this is immediate. You have to have it be immediate
Yep.
because you need to make this job as competitive as possible. I don't know how good of a job nationally. A couple things. Nationally, it's a mixed bag in terms of what people think of this job, right? It really kind of depends on who you talk to. From what I've heard, I think certain agents are angling their coaches, right, who want this to be a better job than it might be currently. I think this funding helps a lot, right, in terms of the optics of what this position is going to be, not only like next season, but moving forward. But the most important thing from this presentation for me is how quickly Virginia Tech is aiming to up the financial standing. I don't really care about FY29 right now. I do and I don't. When I see $212 million and people are like, oh, this is going to put them, up there with Notre Dame. It's like, yeah, if not, like you mentioned, Ricky, if none of those schools up their funding at all, then yes, that's the case. But every school is going to do this. So by FY29, who knows what that $212 million looks like? That could be exactly where you are right now again. You could be in the bottom, third of the ACC once again. Probably won't be the case, but I'm not sure you'll be in the upper few schools either by that point in time. Also, a point that I brought up on Twitter and Doug Bowman echoed, which was a great point, is that what have we talked about on this podcast, Ricky, that's happening around 2029, 2030? All the TV contracts are getting torn up, and the next round of realignment is likely happening around that time frame. College football playoff deals are coming up as well with the television networks. There's going to be the next big round of realignment in the next few years. So you're going to have to come back to the donors anyway, you, me, Andrew, and then the rich donors, right, as well. Like
Those are the main people that they need to be targeting.
Those are the main people, which brings me to my next point, right? Because I don't really care about 2028 and 2029 from a funding standpoint right now. I care about the immediate future because we're in the middle of the coaching search, and the next 2 years is infinitely more important than the next 4. It's all important, but just near term is more important than long term. Let's see how many games this team can win under whoever we end up hiring. I think that this obviously shows an investment into the athletic department, and specifically the football program obviously is the main proponent of the athletic department that hasn't been there before. Question, why did it take this long? Why did it take until we got into year 9, year 10 of mediocrity? I mean, let's call it what it is. It's been, for the most part, mediocre since Beamer retired. There's been a season here, a season there, but it's mostly been 6 wins. Why did it take this long to wake up and smell the roses? Oh, because now we're doing revenue sharing? Is that why? Is that the only reason? We've talked about this program and this athletic department resting on their laurels under Frank Beamer. It's been the thing I've been banging the drum about for a really long time. This is kind of what this athletic department does. I'm really glad we're investing now, and we're trying to find a way to make this happen. But it's really going to be up to the richest donors in the fan base to come up with this money, because the Hokie Club to date has not been able to get the donations from the vast majority of the fan base, you and me, the people who are recently graduated, the folks who have been out 10, 15 years. Look, we're all starting to make money, but we're not making the kind of money to make up, I don't know, half of the $212 million that you need by FY29. I just don't see it, right? It's going to have to come from the richest donors. It's going to have to come from the Mahuls of the world, right? Like, those are the types of people who are going to have to put the most amount of money into this. Are they willing to do that? And maybe they are, because I think what ends up happening is anytime you hire a new football coach, there tends to be a level of, okay, we're going to invest more into the program because it's kind of a new beginning. It's just the nature of every time you hire a new football coach. That is just naturally what you do in the sport. You say, okay, we're going to put more into this because we think that this is the guy. Like, that's why you make a coaching change. You think the next guy is going to be better. And maybe the richest donors, right, to Virginia Tech are going to be more invested than ever before because they have to be. But I think that's a lot to bank on unless you've already gotten that level of commitment behind closed doors. I don't know. Like, that's the thing. I do not know right now. And I think that's a question a lot of people should be having, right, when they look at this and they see that like 51 or 52% of this new funding is going to come from philanthropy, which is all of us. It's how much of that do you already have committed? I think that they probably have a decent amount of it or all of it committed in the short term, like FY26. I think a lot of it is probably already committed. What is it going to be in FY27, FY28, and beyond? How much are you going to be relying on the richest donors in your fan base versus the people like you, me, Andrew, etc., who are not making hundreds of millions of dollars a year? That's kind of my question in regards to where the money is coming from. But I have a feeling they have a good amount of it committed already in the near term. That is what I would imagine. I'm sure we're going to find out more of that soon. If that's not the case, then I think fans should be treading with a little bit of caution here when they look at these numbers, right? And how is this going to work in practice? But I think the near term is probably more solid than the long term, both in terms of where the money is coming from, A, but then B, where Virginia Tech is going to stack up. Because I don't think anybody has any idea what 212.1 million FY29 is going to put Virginia Tech. I think it's really hard to say, almost impossible to say at this point with the way the sport is changing.
For sure. And so this meeting is in, by the time most folks are going to be listening to it, 7 days, September 30th. And even though this presentation gives us a lot of the numerical details, it doesn't talk about some of the surrounding issues, like Virginia Tech's inability to fundraise as at an elite level. And my hope is that part of the conversation at this high level conversation that these board of visitors and the John Rokovich are having is, what is it going to take to get Virginia Tech to be able to fundraise at that kind of level? That's going to require a complete rethink of the Hokie Club and how they are attacking this. You're right. The drive for 25 succeeded in some areas, but did not fulfill the ultimate goal of turning Virginia Tech's rabid fan base and growing fan base in terms of alumni into a money printing machine. And there has to be a way to, I don't know if professionalize is the right word, but they have to make this operation work more like a Fortune 500 company and less like your local tailor. And I hate wording it like that because I know that a lot of the folks over there are working their ass off, and as a fan, I appreciate what they're doing. But the fact of the matter is, this is a results business, and if Virginia Tech is going to try and fill some of that gap that is there in the media rights, it's going to have to come from fundraising,
And
and
it can be done.
it's going to require not just an investment in, excuse me, the personnel to get this done, but it's also going to require a new approach, I think,
Yeah.
in trying to engage some of these folks. Look, I'll be honest, Mike. I graduated in 2016. Um, I would say that over the last 5 or so years, I've started to make what I think most people would call a decent living. Not a single time in the last 5 years have I been contacted by anybody asking me to donate. Not once.
Yeah.
And if that's the case for me, I can only imagine what other folks may be dealing with, or in this case, not dealing with. So that's something that has to change. And I'm not saying that I'm, in a position to donate, right? Like I would need to see how that fits into my budget because I have priorities, right? My family comes first, but um, the ask has to be there. You're not going to get the money if you don't even ask.
Yeah.
And I just don't know what the approach is over there at the Hokie Club. And my hope is that this plan will come with some strings, right? Where the next athletic director, because I still am of the belief that Whit Babcock is not going to be here much longer, that the next athletic director is going to come in and really overhaul Virginia Tech's fundraising efforts from start to finish.
Clemson, when they hired Dabo, they revamped their IPTE, I pay 10 a year. That was founded in like the 30s right?
Yeah.
It's called IP for those of you. Clemson's athletic department, like their whole donor, like their version of the Hokie Club is called IPTE. It's I pay 10 a year, and the whole idea was starting in like the 1930s. It's like all that anybody needs to do is donate $10 a year, right, to the athletic department. They revamped their approach when Dabo was hired, and it turned them into the program that I know they've been bad this year, but it turned into a program that it's been under Dabo.
That won multiple
That's
national
won
titles.
multiple national titles, right? And has been, they won the ACC last year. I know it's been a step back, but it's turned them into what Virginia Tech hopes to once again be. And Virginia Tech should really take that kind of approach. You know what I mean? Like the growing donor base piece of it is you really don't need to have a lot of donation, like a lot of money from everybody. You have to have a little bit from everybody. It's you have your big donors, and then you have the folks who are like, I'll give you guys $100 a year. I'll give you guys $50 a year, whatever.
Yeah.
To your point, Ricky, the Hokie Club hasn't really contacted me either. And I get more from the Virginia Tech Alumni Association in the mail than I do from the Hokie Club.
Bingo.
And I would say those are the flyers I get, when I do get mail from Virginia Tech, and it's not often now, but like when I do, it's from the Alumni Association. It is not from the Hokie Club. I gave money to the Hokie Club at the beginning of the Drive for 25. Full transparency, I haven't given to the program in a few years. I think people are going to listen to this and say, well, you're part of the problem. Okay, that's fine, right? Maybe I am part of the problem. But the team also hasn't given us a lot of reason to donate either,
Yeah.
Like, and it hasn't been a money, like we're not, this isn't a money problem to have the team be competitive against Old Dominion. That's not a money problem, right? We bang that drum. Yeah, we bang that drum in that recap. I don't need to rehash that entire thing. I think most people are smart enough to understand the difference between needing to donate to turn this into a perennial conference title contender or college football playoff contender versus we want you to do more than just like eke out 6 wins and beat Virginia at the end of the year to go to the Military Bowl. Like there's a difference between those two things, and Virginia Tech doesn't need an influx of funding to have this be a bowl team again. That's not what this needs to be. So yes, I do think there needs to be a revamp of the Hokie Club. What is Triumph NIL going to look like moving forward? I think that's another question that I have, right? Because I think that a big piece of the revenue sharing era is that the job of the collectives is changing a good bit. It's just different now. The collectives and the university are working, I will say, more openly hand in hand rather than behind the scenes hand in hand in terms of the pay for play, which was so rampant. That stuff's going to continue, but the job of the collective is just different in 2025 than it was even a year ago. So what's Triumph NIL going to look like? What is their role going to be? What is the Hokie Club's role going to be? How are you going to market the two entities and show that they're different? Because they are different. So the average fan, are they going to understand when Triumph NIL says, hey, donate to us, and the Hokie Club says, hey, donate to us? Is the average fan, not you and me, going to understand what that means?
Yeah.
These are the types of things that I think the university needs to prioritize. Whoever ends up being in charge, if it's Witt, if it's somebody else, whoever is in charge of this revamp, right, and this fundraising push, I think those are the things that they need to be thinking about, is how are we messaging? And it's all about messaging and communication, which I think the Hokie Club can do a lot better job of. And if they want my input, reach out to me. I'm not hard to find. Like, got ideas, right? We're putting them right out there on this podcast. Happy to help. Like,
Yeah.
it's I think it's a messaging and a communication thing more than anything else. I think everybody collectively could do a lot better job of that, from the university as a whole on down. And I think what's encouraging from this, like we've talked about, is that the university and the Board of Visitors, I think, has the understanding necessary now to know what Virginia Tech's place is and should be in college athletics, what a competitive football team in particular means to the region, specifically town of Blacksburg, Christiansburg, Montgomery County,
Yep.
what and surrounding counties, what a very good football team in Blacksburg means to the area. I think that was clear in their letter today that they released.
Yep.
Talking about how this is what our funding is going to be. We'll talk about it more in a week, on the 30th. There are a lot of signs of encouragement, but at the same time, I say tread with caution because we don't know all the details yet. And I think it's all good stuff. I think everybody needs to pull their weight, and we'll see where Virginia Tech falls. But I think in the near term, as far as the coaching search goes, because that's really all anybody should care about at this point, is what does this mean in terms of the coaching search? Virginia Tech was really, people behind the scenes were real open about leaking this to the agents of coaches before it went public.
Yep.
The stuff
And that
everybody
was
was
not
seeing.
done for no reason.
Correct. I mean, the stuff you were seeing on message boards over the last week, that's the stuff that was getting leaked to agents, and that's all the stuff that was made public today about the funding and where Virginia Tech was going to be and what they were going to spend. And Pete Thamel talking about that on College Game Day, that's intentional. That's, hey, can you get this message out there to a national audience? Hey, can you get this out there to X, Y, and Z agent? These have been very intentional leaks by Virginia Tech leading up to this. They are messaging this in a way to make the football job more competitive on a market that's going to end up being pretty saturated. Florida lost again this weekend. Oklahoma State lost to Tulsa. Gundy's been there forever, but I think time's up.
Arkansas lost.
Arkansas lost a heartbreaker to Memphis, and Pittman looks like he might be cooked. There are going to be some jobs that open. Stoops at Kentucky, another guy kind of in the Gundy mold who has been there a pretty long, not as long as Gundy, but he's been there a long time. And
what happens if Kiffin leaves Ole Miss?
What happens if Kiffin leaves Ole Miss for Florida? He'll probably be a top candidate at Florida. Then Ole Miss becomes a very attractive job. So Virginia Tech being one of the first jobs to open, I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
And getting this messaging out there as quickly as they are is also a positive thing, because it is going to be a job market, I think, that is very competitive. And I think the top guys are going to have their pick, and you want to position yourself as best you can. And that's how you should take the news of, oh, okay, 190 million in FY26. What does that mean? It means that a lot of that money is going to football, and they're going to make this job as competitive as possible, because Virginia Tech fired their coach after week 3.
Yeah, I think for me the most encouraging part about the slides that were published today was basically a confirmation that the board is serious about this. I was a little skeptical after the original presentation that Wick gave, because it seemed like some of the folks there had just checked out and hadn't been watching for the last 5 years, which is extremely inexcusable, considering the football program especially it's the marketing engine of your university that gets you the most eyeballs. I mean, Virginia Tech has millions of people watching on a weekly basis, and that marketing tool has not been effective over the last several years. You would think that these folks would have been clued in, but it seems like Witt's presentation, though late, was an effective wake-up call to get the board to realize that they had to take decisive action quickly. And the fact that Virginia Tech is going to be putting up so much money in year 1, which is essentially year 0 because we're already in that year, is confirmation that they're taking it seriously.
Yeah.
But I do want to caution some folks in the sense of, don't think that everything is solved, right? Because again, they have to actually raise a lot of this money. They're going to be hiking student fees. What are the ramifications of that? The whole bridge funding part of this presentation is unclear. I don't know if that's loans that are going to be given to the department where they have to pay that back down the road. Are those going to be quote unquote loans where they're essentially forgiven? It's not really clear. So there needs to be a little bit more of a conversation between the board and the athletic director now and in the future to figure out exactly what those funding sources look like and how they're going to get those those funding sources fulfilled. And I hope that happens. I'm encouraged. This is a good start. And if the vote goes the way that I think everyone thinks it's going to go, because something like this does not get put out to the public unless you have widespread support amongst the board of
Correct.
visitors.
Correct.
So there you can essentially take it to the bank that this is going to get approved. Um, the heavy work begins after that, because even if you do put something like this out, there's going to be a lot of agents and coaches that are going to say, well, that's nice, but is it actually going to work? Are you actually going to be able to bring that kind of money in? Show me some results, right? Show
Do you
me.
have this? Do you have this money right now?
Yeah. And you know what, Mike, it would be really good, at least from a public relations standpoint, if this stuff gets approved and then within a week they start announcing commitments.
Mm-hmm.
This family has committed to donating $1 million for each of the next 4 years. This family has committed to donating $500,000 for the next 4 years, and you just start peppering the public with this constantly. Hey, another group committed to donating, and if those are already lined up, that would be an incredible and very strategic play from a public relations standpoint. That's certainly something I would consider as someone who does PR for a living. Um, if that's the case, I think it's going to be pretty effective because you start to generate that momentum in the public that this is actually working, and you can maybe get some more folks to buy in.
Yeah, people on social media who don't really know anything, they'll do the thing where they make fun of the schools that when a school fires their coach or hires their coach, or like, oh, the X, Y, and Z family head coaching position. Have you seen that where they like some
Yes.
schools have their positions sponsored? It's because they have a lot of money, guys. It's because a lot of money has been donated by that family. I think Notre Dame's
Or
is
probably paying part of the coach's salary.
yeah. I think Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, I think his is like he's the Dick Corbett head football coach at Notre Dame, something like that. That's because they've donated a lot of money. That's like
I
let's
think
let you know a little secret. Like that's
I
what's going
think
on there.
Vanderbilt has something similar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Clark Lee is the God, this is so dumb. He is the E. Bronson Ingram Chair in Football. Whoever the hell E. Bronson Ingram is has donated a shit ton of money to Vanderbilt. That's all you need to know.
It's the guy who invented the light bulb, I'm pretty sure. You need to get one of those guys into or ladies, whoever, don't care. And you got to have that kind of money. Like that's what we need. I encourage the board of visitors. I am, the good news is that it seems like this was an effective wake up call by Witt. Whether it's late, we know it could have happened earlier, all that stuff. The encouraging news is that it seems like it was an effective wake up call. I just want for the current board of visitors and future members of the board, just please remember where your bread was buttered. The reason why Virginia Tech is the esteemed academic institution that it is today is because of Michael Vick. That is flat. If you don't believe that, put your head back in the sand. Virginia Tech's enrollment went through the roof after Vick graced Worsham Field. It's just a fact, and it's become the school has become more and more and more difficult to get into as the years have gone on, and a lot of that has to do with Vic and the success of Frank Beamer and people having eyeballs on the television and understanding what Virginia Tech is every Saturday. That is why Virginia Tech became the academic school that it is today. So when all the people in academia want to push, oh, we're this, this, and that before we're a football school, just don't forget where your bread was buttered. Okay. I know it could seem like 1999 was a long time ago. I get we're pushing 3 decades now, right? Since Vic was on the field in Blacksburg. I understand it, but that is the reason why you are the academic institution that you are today. One of the best public institutions on the East Coast. You're rising up U.S. News and World Report every year in terms of where you stand in public institutions nationally. Obviously, the engineering school is unbelievable. The business school has been climbing. There's a lot of reason for optimism on the academic side. And the reason why that's the case is because of the football program. And the more you slide and the more irrelevant you become, the more that you become just the academic school, right? Which again, for the for the professors, and the folks in academia, maybe that's okay. But for the region as a whole, that's not what's healthy for everybody else. It's not what's healthy for the town of Blacksburg, Montgomery County, Roanoke, that surrounding area. When Virginia Tech football is going good, the local economy is going good. There's a lot of really good reasons to be invested in the program being competitive. And I think the Board of Visitors understands that. Obviously, this is a very good step forward. But I caution everybody once again, 26 and 27, I think, are more important at present, obviously, than 28 and 29. I want to see where the money is coming from, like actually, right? You could say, oh, philanthropy, bridge funding. Let's see what has already been committed. I would imagine a lot has already been committed in 26. I imagine they've probably secured some funding for 27. 28 and 29 are probably more question marks. Yeah. And that's where I think they're going to lean on the donor base a bit more. I know they have the split, oh, you need 30 million a year, whatever. But I'd imagine some of it has already been secured, especially in the near term when you're searching for a new football coach. So
the best marketing investment Virginia Tech ever made was to buy the right to play Enter Sandman before the games.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best marketing that Virginia Tech has. That draws people to your institution. And when Virginia Tech was winning 9, 10, 11 games a year, that drew people to your institution. I mean, Kyler Murray was wearing a Michael Vick jersey on Instagram last week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people often underestimate the staying power that Vic has within the culture. And doing so would be foolish. And that all stems from football. So it really is now or never, Mike. And that's why your point about the funding being committed for 26 and 27 is infinitely more important than 28 and 29, because those decisions that get made in 29 and 30 are going to come from the results from this year, next year, 2027. All the seasons leading up to that are how people are going to come to these decisions, right?
Contingent on the now. Yep.
Yeah. So you have to win starting next year. And I know that it's going to take, they got to find the leadership right. They have to put the right person in charge. The right person is going to have to get the right people around him. He's going to have to turn over the roster, which is going to be an absolute bear. This roster needs serious help. There are a ton of guys that are seniors that are going to be gone. You're going to have to lean heavily on the portal. You're going to have to hammer home the next couple classes to try and make sure those guys are ready for when that window comes open. So there is a ton of work ahead, and this is not going to happen overnight, but this is an encouraging start, and I'm hopeful that the coming meeting on September 30th will yield some positive results and will yield a bit more concrete details regarding where they're actually going to get this money.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I thought was interesting that came out today was there was a report, I think it was from On3, that said that Bruce Arians is going to be on the coaching search committee. Mike, it would be utter negligence to not include Bruce Arians on the head coaching search committee.
It would. I mean, get as many smart football minds in the room as possible.
You would think that the first few people you would call for this position would be Bruce Arians, Bruce Smith, Bud Foster,
Frank.
probably Frank. Although I'm gonna commit to that a little less, considering Frank's health and the fact that Frank needs to focus on Frank and his family. But to me, those are the first few guys I'm calling. Right, like I'm on the phone with those three guys because those are power brokers in the game. Right, Bud is still one of the most respected coaches in the country to ever take on a headset. Bruce Smith is one of the greatest NFL players of all time. Bruce Arians, guy is Super Bowl champion, obviously played at Tech, well respected within football. These are the kinds of people that you want to put on your committee. So should be no surprise here. I'm hopeful there are some other big names on it, and hopefully they can come to a good decision. I will say, Mike, after last week, I am warming up to Ryan Silverfield as a potential candidate. I
Uh,
think he is going to get some really good options.
winning on the road at Arkansas. He's now 25-5 since the start of the 23 season.
Yeah,
Pretty good.
yeah, pretty good. They're
What did
definitely on their way to a playoff bid.
I heard Bud Elliott. Yeah, I mean they're the G6 favorite through the month of September. I heard Bud Elliott say on CBS Sports Network over the weekend that it was talking about the Florida job, and if they fire Napier, okay, are you not going to go with Summerall because the last Napier was a G5 coach and it didn't work out? And I think what he said then subsequently on Twitter is he posted the clip is like, oh, you used to date a girl named Sally. I forget who he said. You used to date a girl named Sally, and now you've met an awesome girl who's also named Sally, and you're just going to say, yeah, no thanks, because she has the same name as your ex. He was basically making that comparison for Florida. And I would just caution Virginia Tech fans with the same thing. If you get a group, like a hiring committee, including some of what we believe to be the most informed football minds and the people who understand what Virginia Tech was and what Virginia Tech is and how a new coach will fit into this job. And if they think Ryan Silverfield's the guy, then I think you can have whatever opinion you want, obviously, of the head coaching hire, but you have to give him a shot, right? Like if everybody's on board with that and that's the push and that's who we hire, everybody get behind the guy, right? Get behind him. Okay? Don't say, "Oh, well, the last failed coach came from Memphis," and yeah, we also just hired a guy with no head coaching experience from Penn State. He came from a much better program than Memphis, and that didn't work. So, coaching hiring, you feel like you have something. A lot of times it's a coin flip because they have to have a full understanding of what their new school entails. Sometimes all the stuff you used to do at a prior stop is really good for the prior stop and doesn't work at the school you're at. That's what I think kind of happened with Pry here a little bit. Is Franklin did a lot of this stuff at Penn State and he thought it would fit here and it didn't. And I'm sure that's to blame for at least some of the shortcomings. So Silverfield is a guy who I think is going to be interested, but I think he's also going to have his pick as long as this team keeps winning. And if Memphis makes a playoff, I would be very surprised if he is still at Memphis a year from now. So yeah, it's going to be, I don't have any, I had some input at the outset of guys who I think would get a call and some guys who I think would be interested, but there are so many jobs that are going to open now that it's really hard to see where this is going to go. It is still very early. So we'll see, of course. And there is going to be a million leaks, especially as you get into the latter stages of October. Like this time next month, I'm not saying we're 1,000% going to know who the candidates are, but we're going to have a much better idea than we do right now. That's like we're going to be another third of the way through the season at that point. We're going to know which tenures are maybe over already, which guys are on their way out who haven't been fired yet. What's the landscape going to look like in terms of jobs that are opening, coaches that are maybe looking for a soft landing elsewhere? And when I say that, I'm thinking like Hugh Freeze at Auburn, who is always looking for his next opportunity because he is, at least
He
post
seems to
Ole
wear
Miss,
out his welcome rather quick.
post Ole Miss, he's kind of worn out his welcome everywhere except, I mean, even Liberty was a little interesting towards the end. So just keep that stuff in mind.
Something to consider for Memphis, a school that may or may not be in that conversation, Mike, of the 2029, 2030 potential realignment. They inked a rather notable $25 million deal with FedEx last year to add $5 million a year to their NIL fund. I don't know what kind of job Memphis is nationally and how it ranks, although I do believe that Memphis may be a better job than some people think, considering the amount of success that they've had there.
Yeah, I would agree. Obviously, FedEx is based in Memphis. They have some C-level people with deep ties to the university, so it's really good to have that in your back pocket. Obviously, yeah. I mean, I think the schools who have best positioned themselves are the ones that have very, very rich donors.
Mm-hmm. Surprise.
Yeah.
But kind of tying it all back together, this is why this extra funding and extra support from the university is so damn important. Because if Virginia Tech is going to hire a good candidate in a rough market for buyers, you're going to have to come to the table with some serious cash. And that's not just for the head coach himself, it's not just for his assistants, but he's going to have a really nice budget to play with. And hopefully this is the start of that.
I'm encouraged by it. I think everybody should be encouraged. I wouldn't say that this is going to when I caution people, it's just because I saw some stuff on social media today. It was flat out irresponsible in regard to like 2029, where Virginia Tech's go, where that puts Virginia Tech. It's like, yeah, but other schools are going to raise money too. Yep. The landscape's changing, so we don't know where that's going to stand. The most encouraging sign is this is going to position Virginia Tech immediately into the top handful of schools in the ACC, which is great, and that's where you want to be. So yep. Worry about that for now. Let's hire a football coach, root the team on for the rest of the year, see what they can do. We'll preview NC State here in a few days, and this game is winnable. Like I don't expect Virginia Tech to win, but if Tech comes out and plays well for Montgomery on Saturday night, going on the road to Raleigh, this game is winnable with the way NC State plays defense. So,
yeah, interesting situation for the Wolfpack. I think I picked them to beat Duke. That didn't go very well. They do have a win over. They do have a win over the Hoos at home. They have also beaten East Carolina, and then they have a win over Wake on the road. But we'll definitely get into previewing the Wolfpack here later in the week. I'll have my column that'll be coming out tomorrow, most likely. Photo gallery from the Wofford win is on the website, HokieyHangoverPod.com. You can listen to every single episode of the Hokie Hangover there. Obviously, we're available on all the other platforms, including YouTube, X, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts. Again, shout out to Homefield Apparel. Shout out to Counts Family Pharmacy. Continuing to support the show. We appreciate both of you very, very much. Mike, any last words before we wrap this up?
Keep listening, please. Please subscribe to YouTube. I think there's enough going on with the coaching search and stuff like that where I do think a lot of people will still stay tuned in this podcast for the rest of the year. And plus, there's fun stuff like this with the Board of Visitors funding, which we'll be able to get into next week after NC State as well. So I think there's reason to still be listening beyond the football team being really bad.
Yeah, hopefully they're not as bad this Saturday. But we'll have to wait. Until then, go Hokies.